Hello, America. This is regarding January 6 treatments. For example, well, with all respect to you as a person, every single, distinctly every campus, everyone came through having had replaced what our founding parents left to understand first. For example, about why that had to leave it, what would unfold with amendments to the Constitution, and how obfuscated would be how they had to force the North still entrenched by a breaching method greater than and more finite than the sophistication of England and of Great Britain. That which was on paper truth used as life, for example, where people had to, didn't have time for quality of fact keeping, and laws were manifest where and how they had all these countries. They had the North and South America sickly distinctly involved with a non-distinct sick, non-distinctly sick method that everyone missed because it was sustained, perfected against every country. And so the January 6th treatments. Excuse me moment. I'm sorry. I'll be right back because no one's here right now. Upon faith. A notion. Of nature.
So, dear Representative Thompson, now, if you, when there was slavery, and anyone had to try to speak about, they would misinterpret them. They would set them up, and they would know they would be lying about the nature of the response to it, why and how the nature of the response was arranged. That range from would also be self-valued by them because they were forged as identities. Everybody that couldn't defend themselves and us at the same time. I left a rude, nasty, probably feeling or impression. I don't know, not rude, because I realized at the same time. See, people had made confessions to me or statements to me tied to other people who made confessions that I don't know, but that became that I know the names of. That became that became relevant per where and how there were confessions made to me. For example, by a principal child abuser, also connected, recorded, tied to names in Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut, involve further intercampuses with child abuses and uses of it. It's a method that has people on and off campuses describing the nature of the relationship to the kids. See, they have this relevant to it, where and how. They have treatments of, they have, experts on like CNN. This is regarding also news with CNN. I forgot to mention this, that this was covered by CNN, where it was referred to as a comedy of errors. And this is an investigation to find if it's a comedy of errors. There is worse than criminal incompetence that was originally instilled. They're preventing us free speech. They're keeping the narratives that
all private tied, all exception nature tied to the three branches of government. And the three branches of government are still criminally foreign influence kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite act of progressive lies, simultaneous lies, value denials together, timed too, identity ground uses. There are men and women from Central Connecticut State University, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also involved. And in other words, nothing personal against the college. This is what's recorded, but they've been forging and switching names into branch with the people that enter campuses. They've been planting fake letters. The same people leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that context, for example, the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it, proven with post-dated documents from inside the court. More recorded worse was that was proven after the attack, and that proven led to a different part of the same the same plaintiff, different part of a case /S. Excuse me, in Connecticut District Court. That was in Manhattan, though. Ninth Circuit is right next to where the Trade Center towers were, right before that. Because those names are also associated with people with the World Trade Center, associated with people with the name Scalora. There's a Claudia Scalora. I don't know all her relatives' names, but there's a Joe DeMoro with Wethersfield Police and with F.B.I. and involved criminally with former director of the F.B.I., also with Mendez Police, on and off the Wethersfield Police Department, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fabricated police reports, including with kids, coercing their parents through time, and little kids to fake words, and not letting them tell about it after, increasingly exploiting that. In other words, they're also waiting, because then once they have, in other words, they use methods like pretending. They just make allegations against people as courts, for example, where they are victim predators, used remotely since they were kids, though. See, this is consciously replacing what our founders left us to understand. Why and how is obfuscated and counter-obfuscated with the amendments to the Constitution. It's about how it was left by our founders to be shown how it was abridged, how they left and forced they left that to fight with itself. Otherwise, to lose in other words, and still preserve, hiding how they were the ones who actually forced to transpire, where and how people would into where there were already hundreds of nations trying to get on the paper, trying to be the criminally the left criminally re-engineered ancient republics unity. And independence, because it was a unity before criminal foreign influences, using why we are individual group and species identity of volume /S. I taught best vaccines until we tell it each is one. Species body moves as one. Then Guardian is one, because it was too long it would take to fix the sea. We make fresh water in every country too. We consolidate. In other words, it just more and more means come from nowhere. You know what I'm saying? For example, so they have you offensively being led and defending, and then further going to have to defend roles with sequence shifts and with predicate acts that NBC Connecticut News has fabricating audio and video, and for fabricating emails with child abusers of various natures and juxtaposed natures of organized crime roles, including where and how. The branches of government never had the right to be criminally foreign influenced. No roles with standardized with all natures of what they call crimes. For example, how many people, even how many little they like with marijuana, how many kids they hurt with that? How many adults that were hurt since they were kids, sickly, distinctly, in cities across the world, in suburbs, let alone cities, sickly, distinctly, effectively to keep and having kept, how sickly, non-distinctly from being valued, because there are revelations there to value, because there are revelations on where and how to cause evolutions, fruits, and gifts, positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and means everywhere at once. Right there, we have to use what is simultaneous. We can't deny exceptions in exception nature. You can't start calling us names when we're telling you, okay, look, fix the fake news. They put these lies. It's not just the news. That's one instance. Well, what is this? They're trying to separate subjects because they've been involved, which also demonstrates, which also been confirmations of other people. I didn't even tell them, confessed, demonstrated, recorded, when they were making exceptions tied to the people with the use of the park. Like, for example, there are two. There's a. I don't go into. We'll go into names if you want, or we won't. So if I don't go into names, then people. I'm not even on Facebook. God knows what they're doing. They keep making fake Facebook page. They've been doing this with the investigations tied to responses of things, because they've been in collusion, where they've been hiding, how they've been in cases fabricating audio and video, um, exploiting exceptions they themselves had roles setting up, and not realizing too, because of how it was relevant to class placements, uses of them on and off campuses, connected effectively, consciously measuring and maintaining, not told, and other being told, where and how the youngest ages were supposed to be told about criminal insidiousness, and how our founding parents, and how in every modern country too. But in other words, they wanted us to explain how they didn't have free speech, because if they spoke up, the laws had been already sustained. The nature of relationships between people, their treatments of positive and negative, their sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase, but to use it what it is, what such would mean, for example, and does mean, actually, because there's the human volume science here, actually, not theory science. See, if people debate things and they don't realize that you guys are styles of premises treatments, fact, human nature, quality, aspects that can't defend themselves and afford defenses of ourselves relative to natures of criminal insidiousness that are interstates, further internations, and but further, and worse than that, fluent through them. And when I say worse than that, I don't mean the identity, how they're grouped. And that identity of influence is invisible but still discernible. There is another, a hyper invisible but still discernible. But that's a hyper negative. Roles with it are self-valued because they're unrealized. And the only way of discerning it is through where and how all forms of sophistication / non-sophistication have effectively been maintained, arrays, self-valued as styles, preventing people from inside this from demonstrating how they are saying what they are saying, but other people are dishonestly pretending they don't understand us. Genetic interbranch uses sequence shifting and name switching, where and how they have reactions that are manifest per where and how. They overt criminal enterprises, killers even, and child abusers, leaders of the kids, including ones around them, their own, including per uses of themselves when they were kids, where class placements themselves are recorded being and having been employed, criminally foreign influenced to maintain roles with vertically and horizontally maintained, relied upon, breaching screen tool weapon, and worse, infrastructure that our founding parents left us to demonstrate. Relative to, they left us to demonstrate where he and how our founders forced the people that were involved with slavery, North and South, to to fight against it. Even though they didn't, even though everyone naturally wants to, but even though they were still already involved with that method, that was already complete possession of everyone. Way worse and more fun. Don't forget, how could it be way worse? Don't forget, torture is additional to slavery. So what has the slavery and the additional torture and a method by that? What has the identity theft, fraud, and slander method by that? What has the identities of the people A through Z and the method of the math is sickly, distinctly victims of the breaching method, singular, and to all locations, all ages of fact should be nature were and are being and having been employed. When you guys are positive and when you guys are opinions / convictions, you are simultaneously positive and negative treatments, increasingly self-valuing, where criminally legalized locations, areas, and states. We're just supposed to just start because they're without anyone realizing there's still colonies, not just colonies. The countries that were colonizing were possessed too by that which is we have to. They knew that we would have to refer to as criminal foreign influences because of we'd have to counter. It knew the breaching method knew we'd have to counter increasingly the causes of criminal insidiousness. For example, with criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, fact finding treatments, effectively being and having been used to hide sequence shifts, hide roles with predicate acts every year leading up to the World Trade Center attack, distinctly, non-distinctly, and two leading up to it, with the same names involved, with identity theft, fraud, slander too, relevant because that's where and how. When we examine what was hurting everyone sickly, non-distinctly, we're examining uses of it that had nothing to do with it. Again, had to do with the ground. Again, it had to do with correlation nature relative to what does a person use for evidence as correlation. You guys are saying you don't see evidences because you're trying to stand on the integrity of the Justice Department. You just want to promote the identities of titles, of names at all locations, areas, states, and then fourth, just things in courts. Courts, in other words, and you know that you guys have undercover police and all that, things like that. You know, you guys have, in other words, you have, if you try to examine the logic, in other words, of what is New York City going to cause? The people stacking in New York City, actually. What really are the causes? behind people killing each other. And what were they blaming it on? See, they were leaving out and are leaving out all the offensive evidence reception, racketeering, worse than war crimes, confessed, recorded, and demonstrated self-value originally and still not told on by everyone. And everyone needed to blame it on other things, others or self, because everyone was employed to by the breaching method. The hypercracker, people racker, people stacker, people, all exceptions, exception nature. There are three identities of exception nature. So you have all identities of theater employed identity theft, fraud, slander roles to keep how nature, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that, native pure, without the systems abridged, is hyper relevant to us. Keep relativity, everyone fighting about what Einstein, if they think they're smarter than Einstein, if they read Einstein, they want to keep relativity to relative to theory rather than relative. In other words, there's an identity of relativity present. And Happy New Year to you too. Happy New Year to you. It's been a long time since I visited you. Oh, my friend, how's your music? I remember you were a talented musician. Viva Russia. I don't know, that's Spanish, Viva. I don't know what language, but greetings. This is about, see, our capital was attacked on January 6th, and they have a commission to counter it. And this is a good example of where and how countries individually grouped them together. The people who try to defend ourselves, while they're trying to defend themselves, they're in collusion and they're screening and preventing the quality of fact human nature we need to be to do it. And we wouldn't even have to defend ourselves if we be this quality of fact human nature. Evolution's fruits, gifts, needs come from nowhere. I know your music is great, man. What's the name of your song? What's the name of your favorite song? Hey, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm looking at this and it looks like, because I don't know what language. I remember Russian, I think. I'm a fan of Russia ever since the Rocky movies, or that one where they had the two nuclear weapons, and then because that's what we have to do. We have to stay bonded the way nature needs us bonded, but we have to show everyone how the negative value nature progressions acts nature, entertaining that as sophistication. People with nuclear bombs and stuff like that. Our locations are in Russia and in America, the suburbs look just the same as they were since before cars, before the founding parents of our countries were even born. The breaching method with slavery was already entrenched. It had already been forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded on all the countries individually grouped and together, bound then again, tactile from how we are naturally supposed to be bound, to make all not just chaos, but all when trying to speak for order, needing to blame simultaneously other things other than or themselves for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, and why and how. The revelations by how that our volume is individually grouped in species volume as three identities of volume bound, like the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall. Cell walls, where they come together to show the body of value, invisible but still discernible, the value of the subject and the predicate. So we could speak, we could translate. These are the subject and the predicate. They are both invisible but still discernible bodies of nature as value / value as nature, increasingly, where for one identity of hyper-simultaneous nature is only making more of itself. See Santa's elf. But see, there's breach. So there was counter breach. But the counter breach is still contained in, well, as the breach. So one must teach. Until all can reach, we must be the species body, legion / tribes. Because anything discernible, physically or invisible but discernible, but still discernible, that is only relevant that is only capable of being used to discern the simultaneous. And then we are capable of discerning what is actually that which is willed by the hypersimultaneous that will cause positive value nature progressions, action natures actually. The takes on the ancients when they do it with theater and stuff like that. That is in collusion with evaluations of the integrity and of the worth of, the value of, for example, of theories, intersciences, individually grouped and together. Hundreds of nations shared here and there as identities. No, when we speak, there's a sequence nature. When we come across, hey, dude, hey, how you doing? Hey, Nancy, Bill, Barbara. See, I mean, maybe you don't have many people around. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying we are a value progression. We are a quality of diffusion. The way one identity of forever nature gave us a temporary hyper positive. We could be systems other than its, but then it forces the value of our quality of fact, treatment nature, invisible but still discernible. Only the extent of it is debatable. See, the extent / s of it are offensively pretended debatable as qualities of fact, treatment nature, increasingly criminal insidiousness. So, in other words, the same people that want to pretend that they have the motive. CNN has rules with people investigating the January 6th Commission that are also involved with uses of the policing of CNN's Facebook pages and of their Twitter pages. Now that is retired and standing interbranch connected people, and all exceptions in exception nature considered the same thing, military, etc. Private databases tied people, etc. This is before computers. This method, singular, against every modern country. It built them, countries A through Z, as a pseudo sophistication to be the only sophistication / non-sophistication, because it was in collusion as a race, fighting with ourselves or our identities, our thefts, frauds, and slanders and motivations for it through other pretended, no matter where we are, unless we address this properly. It uses this method effectively. You know, in other words, our locations, areas, and states. There is a woman too who said she's Russian with a Hartford hospital that is involved with a Leahy family of doctors who've been involved, and a Lombardo family / IES involved with some drugs and medicines crimes with Wethersfield police families and with courts families, and sexual crimes too, because this is methods involved, for example, in natures of crimes rule, uses of identity, ground locations rules by the method. And they switch names, forge names. They offensively pretend they have integrity when they know other is recorded that they don't. They know that they record, confess, demonstrate, confirm, through time. For example, there has been, since before I was born and through my lifetime, the news has been roles with fabricating audio and video, with individuals involved with groups, criminally foreign influenced by a whole bunch of different countries, needing to keep the same sequence yet finite active progressive lies and timed uses of them blamed on other things others themselves, because there's also uses of their juxtaposed other than the breaching methods, motivations, natures, needs, and interests, including other than those of how the identity of countries, how they're grouped, is also present at all locations. Because they are now tactically grouped other than how they're supposed to be and valued, how, in other words, how they are actually grouped by that identity of simultaneous nature in conjunction to our syntax nature, therefore to our function /s. No, not only no longer as its system, but also as what is further cause to already having been self-valued and being self-valued simultaneously, roles with the hyper predicate act against every country to cause negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness natures, acts like hyper predicate acts, natures like hyper criminal insidiousness natures. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal, not a military. This is worse than war crimes. But see, humanity has simultaneously inherent active and progressive means. And we have the whole species volume science longing this to demonstrate what we have recorded actually. For example, but since before cars, that which was employed with the fact, human nature, torture, and natures of slavery, sickly distinctly against our founding parents. Therefore, as that involved also too, how sickly distinctly against all the people, A through Z, and problems and affronts against them with this, with and as all that too, the breaching method, which is again for self-valued roles with itself, all locations, areas, and states, identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself, where and how it's the nature speaks about what's going to demonstrates what's going to cause positive or negative value nature progressions, acts and natures here, or it's going to force it from here, leaf of IDs, force space nature transfer. YouTube Anthony, well, I didn't make this up. I didn't read this, but that's really most probably what and how the ancients would speak about this. Force space nature transfer. In other words, where and how we are increasingly a system /s tactical terrier from the one that causes positive or negative value nature progressions by being the nature, that nature, its identity of relationship to itself, not just being how it is an identity relative to positive and negative simultaneously, but to where and how it is generating more positive, that is either positive as criminal insidiousness nature, or it is positive that is also hyper positive. See, now this It is functional how the invisible but still discernible has an identity that is complete. The same way the cell body, the cell nucleus, and the cell wall have an identity that is complete, and they have identities that are individual and grouped, and know how, like the cell walls, how they connect. So if one observes a transverse section, in other words, a slice of a tomato, very thin, on a microscope slide, and one could observe, because it's like a transparent vegetable, one could observe the cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall, and how they come together. Now think about this. These are three identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. That's one of the things they are, for example, as an identity, individually, the parts of the cell, / grouped. And that's differentially, but constantly increasingly valued. For example, relevant to the heartbeat. We start street, but we end field. And seed is found. All gather round, be legion / tribe, because even the legion, we're dealing with the invisible. So we care. We are led by the hyper invisible, which the invisible has to be used to, with its conjunction to the physical. Oh, so I got carried away because no one's watching from Washington, D.C., or no one cares really. But they have this in CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. Like, and then, I watch the channel where they have them. Those are three down the top. Boxing nonstop until the bell. There's an evil spell on each country that knew that we were going to have to cause. We're going to have to use the phrases, for example, like criminal foreign influences. And knowing that each modern country would have to blame other things, others and ourselves wrongly, and to defend that as fact treatment nature, as sequence treatments, as simultaneously treatments, as the value of their convictions and their opinions, still originally instilled delusions wrought simultaneously. And so that they offensively knew that where and how everyone would have to have excuses. So they have already people investigating things, like trying to study problems and things like that, where and how the real answers involve those same locations, with that effectively maintained. Can't defend itself and afford discernment by where and how the torture / slavery / identity theft, fraud, slanders against our founding parents are relevant and manifest per value treatment syntactically regarding how suburbs across in Russia and in America, how they are manifest in this value treatment system. And they left out exceptions in exception nature, the relevance of it, and they still leaving it out when they make value treatments per economics. And all exceptions they employ, all exception nature they employ to the foot, what they call the foot soldiers of the parties, which are roles with like jobs and things like they call jobs. All they have is our identity, offensive evidence reception, data reception, identity reception styles of logic that are juxtaposed with physical delusions that cannot afford at any location of the human volume the protraction of short words, being led by uses of that which is actually simultaneous and which is actually the course by exceptions and exception nature. For example, there are exceptions to where and how, the opinions and the convictions by the economy, by their positive and negative treatments. You don't have economy when they have that method and those crazy laws against everyone sickly distinctly. They have witch trials and slavery simultaneously. See, but they employed the fight or who did it, who's hurt worse, while simultaneously they employed it for them to measure and maintain, where no one's focusing on the actual ground problem /S. And all exception nature too employed, pull it into the ground level of the theater, positive and negative treatments, effectively being and having been employed for their own motivations, natures, needs, interest, styles, measure, maintain interest, maintaining, measured and exploited, not realized, that which our founders actually left us to tell and to discern using correlation. And it's about the breaching method. It's about the fact, human nature, qualities forced. So the way has been ill-sourced. Oh, I'm fine. I didn't see your other thing. How are you too, my friend? I don't know how to type your name. Do you have an English transliteration of your name? Because then I would be able to pronounce it. Otherwise, I could say B. I call you B. But if you know how to do an English transliteration, that's what I meant to say before. In Washington, D.C., and Representative Thompson, this is a good example. For example, you guys know, I'm pretty sure, that how we have countries like Russia with our kids shared here and there per them, and our family share here and there. And we have the Board of Nations basically shared here and there. And what they call safety here and there, that was as relevant to the attack on to roles with uses of both parties too. For example, involved with pretending passions and emotions regarding hate and regarding their interpretations of other people's passions and emotions. There are proofs that passions and emotions are only functional where and how they are relevant to what is simultaneous / hyper simultaneous. So people don't even have to agree about it being the invisible but still discernible being functional, could have, because it is hyper-functional conjunction nature as exception, nature as that one that none could fake. We could be systems other, but in other words, we could claim to have invented humanity, its identity of volume /S. So we could see that how it is a volume that is the possession as, like we're like a cell, or we're like some cells, and it's where each complete identity makes up a body, like an organ, and that's a semi-nature relationship to the rest of space / existence, and that itself is a semi-nature relationship to even greater than that and more finite than that. Well, as this, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, while as both. So that we can't be but one way. We could be the extent of it. That is also per its system, that is also only increasing where it is positive unto itself. More and more forever nature / S being made. We are like the cells of the body of forever. But it is like the bodies of forever. And it is like the nature of it took complete possession over its extent, over what we are shown as what we agree, excuse me, as that we can discern as space / existence. See, formally they refer to space apart from matter. And that is relevant to where and how they keep, like, for example, with CRT, recorded originally and still, like in America, they have a critical race theory that that the American media recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have interbranch, and they have in retired and standing. That and all exceptions, they have private and overt criminal enterprise. Everyone are kept needing to their roles with a predicate acts delivery system method / S on and off campuses. For example, hyper relevant to where and how they pretend passions and emotions regarding race and culture and things like that. Per uses of it recorded where and how those are interbranch investigations, investigators, natures of people involved with the police, forms, the court, interbranch, and as the ones who different jobs, police forms. They were with the military police. Then they want to have some narrative about, but this is this is the. They don't really, they don't know how to react to who they get killed and hurt because they can't follow, they can't handle mandated law followed at any location with and as the proper nature treatments. For example, the sequence shifts, cover-ups, and screening of it, pretended offensively by by the leadership of the January 6th Commission on the Capitol attack. They still have so they still are offensively involved with all kinds of psychology and medical corruption that is also involved in physical delusions, that is also involved with where and how. It is from off those locations, though, because it is even how they're patients and criminals were as actually recorded since before they got caught. Kept needing to hide roles with predicate acts together as wrongdoers. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police form, not a criminal originally and still. Lawyers were in collusion with those natures of logic and defenses of themselves that couldn't defend themselves and afford told why actually things like slavery were left entrenched. Not one has wrenched complete, which since semi-ancient times has held all minds, fake science. So that then they value how our nations kill each other, hurt each other, because then they have means to feel and to pretend. The significant, the relativity of their positive and negative treatments with every opinion / conviction. See, the ground locations, honesty reveals, even the suburbs, let alone the cities. A breaching method made them only capable of, as an identity of nature's identity of relationship to themselves itself, that is going to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And this method, the breaching method, employed those negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, specifically to have them used by everyone to blame other things, others, or themselves, even when correctly. You're not realizing, because then they would go and defend that. So simultaneously screening the real roles and even when not the complete acts. There are people still roles with the breaching methods act /s with colonization. So the only voices they allow heard are ones that they'll then are, because they quote the past. They said what the past says. The past only there was just only limited voices, and where you have to sort through that. Those locations are offensively preventing and having prevented mandated law, and we have to address how it's simultaneously exploitations, because the extent of the sequence shift self-value. For example, they measure and maintain Representative Thompson incapable and going to be increasingly incapable of defending his logic and of affording discern at locations, areas, and states the actual causes for negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and for insidious natures of peace and of overt, negative natures, real causes and uses of them. We have to. It stems to this method from off campuses, being and having been, having known it was going to have to continue to be from off campuses, on off campuses influences. And I caught them how they're doing it and getting away with it. Because they sustained, this is part of why they had this sustained and why we have to understand. I have to be able to speak, and other people, everyone has to be able to speak about how things were sustained and not have everyone think we're speaking about, because we're trying to say, okay, this was evil. We're trying to point to an evil or something like that. We're trying to say sustained, because then we could examine where and how it was actually manifest. We could examine where and how we could make this website /s, for example, as one of the means to begin without even needing political help in our countries. It'll just be it'll be a hyper neutral source, a hyper neutral conjunction, hyper neutral means, hyper neutral nature platform to communicate through and over pseudosciences, individually grouped and together or bridged. We have to address how that is manifest. For example, they are increasingly valuing time used simultaneously too fast, too slow, while they're obfuscating and having obfuscated, the relevance of theories and formula, for example. The relevance of one step to the next step, because they have them separated. because from off campuses already having been sustained were victim reactions that were employed, where how victim reactions never stopped being incapable of defense of themselves, not from what kept everyone slaves, and as roles with it too. I just sicker or less sicker jobs of it. As it, no one wanted that naturally. That was one of the things tied to where and how they measured and maintained everyone's syntax nature, everyone's function nature. Not just dysfunctional, not just tactically dysfunctional, not just shock and awe, and trying to make other people shock and awe, and then defending that as styles of logic can't afford discern. So now one has learned vaccines. It teaches things. So the police can't be called because they'll replace the audio and video with fabricated audio and video. These are also people involved with the directors of the FBI. There's using the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie, and in collusion with where and how they pretend things are political, where and how they're jockeying to be roles with self-valued criminally foreign influenced agencies, criminally and the conjunction of that to all ground locations. No, with each age of fact treatment nature. So, for example, I do not know Danielle Perron and the two Kevin Caron, Mark Caron, and a Mark Violet, who made confessions about abuses of her, but they demonstrated it was involved. And through time, and others demonstrated it was involved with identity thefts and frauds that they were and are involved with the intelligence community that is criminally foreign influenced, uses of ground locations like campuses, like parks, and connect conjunction as their roles with interbranch kept needing to hide predicate acts in cases, roles with predicate acts methods in cases, predicate acts delivery system method roles is one of the things simultaneously that the existence of slavery was and is in demonstration of. A predicate acts delivery system method, something that is unnatural, something that was employed to be blamed by a breaching method, also that recorded consciously, effectively, entrenched people relying upon blaming other things, others, and or selves for what the breaching method causes, keeps, forces, tricks, hurts, persuades, and worse. We must all rehearse. It is countless means. One way redeems. So that people want to use as proofs all the evidences. Oh, excuse me. So attend. Don't defend roles with the rest of the thing. Mother, are you going somewhere? Where are you going? Want me to come with you, Mom? Oh, do. I had some good lyrics. Someone was messing with me, who pretended to be a famous singer. It was like my muse, they say. You men pray boxings. I teach you things. Belong. Come on. So no one's here. If someone's here, let me please press like, because I don't see any likes. And if you're still here, my friend, dude, please type something again. So what's good? What's good, people? I'm waiting for someone who cares about 9/11 or about, because Wethersfield police had to have roles with names in Sandy Hook and people tied to them, Hartford police, through time. Then they pretend such is personal. See, so we have to address how at locations, because these are also, they're pretending they don't realize how, and the other countries are pretending they don't realize how too. How they keep each other needing to hide life progressions for their roles timed with identity theft, fraud, slanders, off campuses that show collusion /s and uses of class placements and non-class. There's a racketeering there, worse than war crimes, specifically to keep nature's how we are nature actually, and the value of that actually from being discerned. How that is three ways: physically, with the invisible but discernible, and as the hyper invisible. And so the Trinity was revealed by the ancients. And so the Trinity is defended. It also has a title and relevance to other decipher of Christianity and of Islam, for example, reading through where and how they prevent a quality of fact human nature necessary to interpret the value and the significance of the right first parts of their religious books, and they use offensively with passions and emotions, not honestly in other contexts, and not honestly in that context, leaving out exception nature. They value them out of sequence. They want to make positive treatments. Oh, joy is the thing that's great, or discipline, or work, or sacrifice, you know, or the value treatments used only to keep the simultaneous from being discerned. The amendments used only to screen recorded self-valued increasingly roles consciously within as the nature of the Constitution abridged, but is also how unconsciously, because where and how reactions to nature demonstrating that are being and having been employed to blame other things, others, and or ourselves wrongly. Self-value roles, six souls, fake sides, all rise, betrayal tribes. In other words, species coach. We must be as Romulus to free each woman's voice and means. One way redeems. See, we need to yell, and we need to have means to speak peacefully, to defend ourselves with calm peace. And they prevent such simultaneously. The same people that have offensively been lying about our behavior and all exceptions, and they've been evaluating exceptions to pretend other too. There's other reasons why we must understand about exceptions and exception nature. So the only way we have to fight or to overcome things is not democracy, especially not where and how making that opinion / conviction is used to offensively to prevent demonstration of where and how the locations have been used criminally for and influenced, and delusions wrought. They have all kinds of uncharged but still recorded, originally still charged through time known, but they don't know how to charge it because they juxtapose the various natures of courts and the state judicial branch offices, interstates, each of their locations involves exploiting all that too, what from off campus locations, originally still made other employed. When I say employed, I mean off the records, kept with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones, and with uses of that nature of insidiousness shared to all locations. Where and how we are these systems tactical ulterior from nature's system, the one that causes positive value nature progressions, acts and natures as evolution's fruits and gifts, the way it wanted and needs to progressively build at all locations and or to reveal and to have revealed. So you think that, in other words, everything was the ground locations were tactically denatured to be no longer capable of receiving the seeds of people's needs of the plants properly. So everywhere they control everything. Not for and so we would blame other things. So in other words, people are just trying to do themselves. Okay, but that's how we have to get seeds. This is how we have to do it. It's not to point out about the people. It's to point to the method. People mow the lawns every year for decades, longer, for decades. And what happens? Keep taking away. The soil keeps changing. Less and less worms. What happens? The birds, they have to find something else to eat. What happens? Different kinds of bugs. Negative value nature progressions are demonstrated. Negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. This is also relevant to where and how they have the private schools and the public schools of America overtly / insidiously through time, originally and still criminally foreign influenced. In other words, self-valued criminally foreign influence. Identity theft, fraud, slanders from behind people so they can't, because they have the people offensive evidence reception racketeering. Worse than war crimes. For example, relative to opinions / convictions regarding what caused slavery and what all styles of logic that prevent uses of the additionals to it from being used too, like the torture, like the uses of that. In other words, they bring up witch trials and they leave that out simultaneously. That's means, that's evidence. That means the correlation, that means to discern the nature there of criminal insidiousness nature. So people that trying to get, people have self-valued, how criminally legalized roles with entrenched criminal insidiousness natures of positive and negative treatments, who are self-valued then and now. Fake branches bow and fall. You hide the seed. Please read. They'll build the wall. That's not politics. It's my last name. Well, I'm not. I'm for the president / chiefs. I'm for their dreams, which they don't understand how to defend themselves. They don't understand because they're shock and awe relative to how locations in areas and states are really cabinet. So there's something to do with the buildings next to the state capitol in Hartford, Connecticut, involved with this, with the people that said they're Russian. That when I was a kid, then it came up again because I caught them with a principal child abuser. There are some people with Hartford Hospital with a triage. They have some people with psychology and some doctors and various natures of courts personally, and like with the ones tied to these hospitals where they force people for mental evaluation. Those people have been involved with juxtaposed natures of abuses of children and uses of elderly homes with their family members and stuff like that. So they haven't. It's relative to where and how they have employed and have had employed the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts of natures being and having been blamed on other things others and or on selves, even when telling the truth. For example, when they don't have enough space and or where the space is just inconducive to anything but that which is incapable of defending itself without being a criminal insidious nature of passion emotion treatments too and defenses of that. So for example, relative to where and how they have advertisements placed on the news companies, they have collusion at locations and with wire crimes with them and with the FBI personally criminally involved where they can be sued and where they can be indicted, and where if people pretend that they can't be because they're the only ones that can decide that, decide not, they can be anyway. We just have to follow mandated law here online because they're already recorded offensively threatening, hurting, torturing people not to say anything when they try to speak and use what is actually recorded, correlation nature. See, each branch of government pretends they don't see evidences criminally when they're being reported verbally correctly. So they have them in their databases. They have fake things typed in there. They have people think people spoke fake things. They replace what's actually recorded communications with Wethersfield Police over the phone. They switch names. They have that as their roles with predicate acts of a whole bunch of different natures on my street through time, and with the Dillon family involved also with many on off the state, locations and town locations. So then they have the sense and sensibilities of people. Increasingly, they juxtapose in, they have overt criminal enterprises with the locations, private ones originally and still uncharged, self-valued for various reasons, legitimate and not. Legitimate ones, I would only say that legitimate because of where and how it's is not legitimate where and how they have the nature of war elements and collusions with each other with that too. In other words, there is no one at the helm of integrity, at the helm of sciences, at the helm of solutions, at the helm of the nature of the law's voice. So we gather as the legion and or as tribe. All rise or be that vibe. So in other words, everything we supplement, especially for the locations of the human identity of volumes most tactically denatured. It will change the nature of everything. The process of doing it will reveal even more means out of nowhere. Evolution's fruits and gifts, especially where how we are fact checking. I don't think anyone's heroes. I'm leaving. Last chance. Anyone hear me? Anyone come to hear? Vaccines prepare. Scientists share an identity. See, vaccines we fight, but by the rules. There's one way of fighting that where even when someone loses, I'll win. The perfect world is led by the hyper-perfect that is at the same time its own. Vaccines, come on. The ancient republic in its campus system as nature system, led by the invisible and the hyper-visible but discernible. It's learnable. Humanity. I say I'm all alone, so I'm not speaking to any one person like that. Have a great new year, people. Let's all prepare. Vaccines. It teaches things. Thank you.